Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Book Trek 2025. This is a BookTube event created by VII at Revenant Reads, designed to read Star Trek stuff all summer long. Summer is what we associate with Star Trek. So many of our co-hosts associate summer with Star Trek. I certainly do. Mainly because I spent one summer watching Star Trek 3 in the movie theater at every one of its showing for the entire time it was there. That was a summer, a boiling hot summer in Iowa. But all of us, for one reason or another, associate Star Trek with summer. So all summer long, you are encouraged to read Star Trek fiction, the endless amount of it, or Star Trek nonfiction, or even some science stuff. And Book Trek doesn't have long to go. We have a week left of summer. So I've been throwing extra Star Trek on the pile every night. And last night, I reread an anthology volume. Strange New Worlds is now the name of a new Star Trek show that you probably don't want to bring up in a friendly evening with Michael K. Vaughan, or many dyed-in-the-wool Star Trek fans. But before it was the title of that show, it was the title of an anthology series, where the editors put forward the call for people to submit stories, their own Star Trek pastiche stories, that would be published in a book. Sandra Marshak and Myrna Culbreth had done that decades before with the New Voyages, but this series went on a lot longer. It went on for a lot of volumes, and I read them all. And like last night I reread VII, Strange New World 7, with this ugly cover, and which has not only the ugly cover but also an offer on the an advertisement on the cover. Ridiculous. These are all set up the same way. All the Strange New Worlds are. They're set up. Each section of the book is about a different iteration of the show, with the final section being variations, weird little flights of fancy that don't necessarily ground themselves in any iteration of the show. And like any anthology, these are going to be uneven. And this is my second time going through this book. Yeah, very uneven. My initial impression years ago when I first read this was confirmed with this reread, which is that the grand prize winner, there was a grand prize, second prize, and third prize that got, I think, money in addition to publication, and maybe start publishing careers. And the grand prize in this book, it's a next generation story, and it is dumb. It's not dumb, but it's nowhere near as good as other stories in this book. It did not deserve the grand prize against its own competition. But even the longer stories, there's a lot that's predictable here. Once you read maybe 3 Strange New Worlds volumes, you will start to see patterns repeat themselves. There are certain characters in Star Trek, in every iteration of Star Trek, that draw pastiche writers. In this volume, it's Harcourt Fenton Mudd, for instance. But it can be anything like that. There are certain narrative themes, especially in the original series, that people just want to revisit. And you see enough of that. You realize how little of it is any good. Much of it is just going through the motions. For me, this time around, there were 2 stories that really stuck out, and they were similar. They were meditations rather than big narrative things. They were very little vignettes. One of them, probably my favorite in the book, was an older Kirk, an older McCoy, and an older Spock in the aftermath of Star Trek VI, the Strange New World, or Undiscovered Country. So it's an older Kirk and it's an older McCoy who are, in the course of that movie, are sentenced to the Klingon dilithium mining penal colony of Rurapente. And they are not expected to live. That you go there and you don't get back out. Known throughout the galaxy as the spaceman's graveyard. And the little story in here is about Kirk and McCoy having basically post-traumatic stress disorder about Rurapente, about their time on Rurapente. And Spock joins them in the course of, for an unlikely little gimmick. He joins them. And he and McCoy mind meld in the course of this little story. The mind meld and also the reason why Spock is joining them are a little bit excess. I like the gesture, at least, that the story makes towards the inner reality of these older characters. As I've said many times in Book Trek over the years, the older versions of these characters do not have good fictional representation. They are not well written. I would argue maybe that they're not well done in the movies, although I think there are moments. But we're dealing with a Kirk. We have seen a Kirk, a Spock, and a Kirk and a McCoy anyway, who are on the verge of retirement. We've watched them grow old. Spock is not going to retire. he's going to leave Starfleet, but he's not going to retire. He lives longer than they do. I wish that there were a great novel of that older crew. This story is not that. It's not great, but it is more thoughtful than a lot of what's in here. And the same thing is also true in here. There's also a story about Captain Harriman. Poor Captain Harriman, who is the captain of the Enterprise B, when on its maiden voyage, Jim Kirk disappears and appears to die. So talk about having a shadow over the rest of your career. And I liked a couple of those vignettes. There wasn't anything really stand out in here. I think in the whole run of the Strange New Worlds, I think went for 13 or 14 volumes. And in the whole run of that, in all those short stories, I think there was maybe 3 or 4 stories that were really, truly good. So maybe I'll read another Strange New Worlds volume tonight and see if maybe I can grub. Those are original impressions of mine. I've never reread any of these. So maybe I'll read another one. I'll pick another number at random and see if I can find a gem in there. I don't know. Or maybe I'll reread an old novel. We don't have many days left in Book Trek. But that's my report for you today. Strange New Worlds Volume 7. Not a whole lot to write home about. And a Land of Troyes story that was very popular to write about her, even in the old days of the dot matrix printers. It was really popular to write about her. It isn't believable that she would be hung up on Jim Kirk romantically. It isn't believable. Anyway, not for years, not after her whole life is taken off. Anyway, there wasn't enough in this book to really make me recommend it, but we'll see. Better futures tomorrow. So I will wrap this up for now, and we will resume tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.